Hello, Mzansi, Africa and the world. You are on Bantu Media, here to educate, inspire, and inform. So, on today's topic, we will be diving deeper into unethical medical practices and their impact on communities. So, in particular, during apartheid in South Africa, followed by a detailed examination of Dr. Wouter Basson and his project, Project Coast. So let's get to it. Unethical medical practices in South Africa. The first one being apartheid, healthcare systems and disparities. So during the apartheid regime, which was from 1948 to 1994, it segregated healthcare along racial lines, ensuring that white South Africans had access to higher quality healthcare services, while black South Africans and other non-white populations had access to underfunded and overcrowded healthcare facilities. Impact on the communities were that black South Africans faced systematic neglect and often received substandard or no care at all. As a result of Bantu, they couldn't prevent disease. They had malnutrition, poor maternal and child health outcomes were common. Healthcare inequality reinforced the broader socio-political oppression and perpetuated cycles of poverty and disease in black communities. Secondly, the forced sterilizations and reproductive right violations. So many black South African women were subjected to forced sterilizations, imagine, during and even after apartheid, particularly in rural hospitals and health facilities. These women often received little information and they were misled or pressured into agreeing to sterilization procedures, particularly during childbirth. So babefakwe izinto so that bangaphinde bakwazi babazale again. Just imagine. This robbed women of their reproductive autonomy and disproportionately affected black communities, where birth control was often used as a tool of population control. So the less we give birth, the better for our Bantu, who were and still controlling us. The trauma of these practices still affects survivors today. Many of women were young and lacked education about their rights. Also, South Africa was a significant site for clinical trials, including those for nevirapine, a drug used to prevent mother-to-child transmission of HIV. These trials were controversial because proper ethical procedures were not always followed, with participants often being inadequately informed about the risk. The exploitation of vulnerable women, often from low-income backgrounds, eroded trust in medical institutions. The failures in post-trial care led to significant health risks for participants, further contributing to overall skepticism toward healthcare in black communities. Imagine. And number 4, Mbeki AIDS denialism. So, but under President Thabo Mbeki's administration, the government's refusal to acknowledge the link between HIV and AIDS caused thousands of unnecessary deaths due to delayed access to life-saving antiretroviral therapy, ART. Mbeki's health minister, Manto Chabalala Msimang, advocated for nutritional remedies like garlic and beetroot instead of proven ARV treatments. And Lenamna, I have my own opinions, and I will have another video just on these. But let's continue. So he advocated for nutritional remedies like garlic and beetroot instead of proven ARV treatments. I believe there was a driving hand there. He was forced to make some of the decisions he did, but Mbeki till today he speaks in riddles. So it's not easy understanding the things he would say. But this stance disproportionately harmed Black South Africans, who were majority of the population affected by HIV and AIDS. And babaninzi abantu abayifumana HIV and AIDS, and it was a pandemic. Studies estimated that over 330,000 lives were lost due to Mbeki's policies, and it caused significant stigma and misinformation about AIDS. Hence, he was. This is one of the reasons he was removed from the ANC, I believe, around 2007, but I stand to be corrected. The legacy of trauma and mistrust. These historical abuses have created a legacy of mistrust in healthcare among many South Africans, especially in Black communities. Many South Africans still have reservations about participating in medical research or trusting healthcare professionals, particularly in matters relating to reproductive health, infectious disease, and new medical technologies. And then we will now talk about Dr. Wouter Basson, or Wouter Basson. This is a very evil man who dedicated his life in reducing the number of Black South Africans. He wanted little to zero Black South Africans in South Africa. And as a result, he did a project known as Project Coast. And we will dive deeper in it and just in-depth examination of what it is, how it started, what it was about. And so Dr. Wouter Basson, also known as Dr. Death, was a cardiologist and former head of South African Chemical and Biological Warfare, CBW. Chemical Biological Warfare. Okay. So this program of his was known as Project Coast, and it was initiated during apartheid-era. So here's a detailed look into the man and the dark history of the project he led. So just a background on him, Dr. Wouter Basson was born in 1950. Mind you, apartheid yaqala, I think, around 1948, so it was just 2 years after. Born in 1950 and became a physician specializing in cardiology. However, during the apartheid regime, he was recruited by the South African government military wing and appointed head of Project Coast in 1981. So it wasn't just him, but he was appointed as head of Project Coast, meaning Project Coast was something that already existed in 1981. His work as a medical doctor became overshadowed by his secretive and highly unethical involvement in biological warfare research. Basson's leadership of Project Coast saw him developing chemical and biological weapons, including poisons and drugs that were intended to suppress or eliminate perceived enemies of the apartheid state. So what was this Project Coast? Project Coast was a covert. So what was this Project Coast? Project Coast was a covert CBW program launched in 1981 by the South African government during apartheid. The purpose of the project was to develop chemical and biological weapons that could be used for both offensive and defensive purposes against internal and external threats to apartheid regime. That's Black South Africans. The apartheid government feared uprisings from Black South Africans, the growing influence of anti-apartheid movements and neighboring countries that opposed apartheid, As a result, Project Coast was seen as a way to secure the regime's control. The key objectives of this project. So, chemical weapons development. Project Coast aimed to create chemical agents that could be used to incapacitate or kill individuals without leaving detectable traces. This included poison and other agents that could be administered covertly. Biological warfare. The project also sought to develop biological agents that could target specific groups, including pathogens that might be used to sterilize Black South Africans or biological agents to suppress their population growth. And okay, let's continue. Crowd control. Another goal of Project Coast was to develop non-lethal agents that could be used to control protests, uprisings, and demonstrations by anti-apartheid groups. Activities under Project Coast. So it was poisoning and assassinations. Under Basson's leadership, the project developed substances intended to assassinate anti-apartheid activists or enemies of the state. Bantu who died and who were assassinated and poisoned by tactics ezasetshenziswa from the Project Coast. So let's go. These poisons were intended to cause death without leaving even evidence of foul play. Sterilization examples. One of the most disturbing aspects of Project Coast was its alleged involvement in research into biological agents that could cause sterilization in Black women. This was part of an apartheid-era goal of population control among Black South Africans, aiming to suppress their numbers. The drug testing on prisoners. There were reports of unethical experiments conducted on prisoners, particularly Black South Africans, as part of the development of various chemical agents. These prisons were often unwitting subjects of research. Basson. So finally, Dr. Basson was then arrested after apartheid ended. Dr. Basson continued working as a physician, but in 1997 he was arrested and charged with 67 criminal counts. Yay, but this fucker came out, including murder, conspiracy, drug possessions, and fraud. Many of these charges related to activities during Project Coast. The trial, which then began in 1999, revealed the extent of Basson's involvement in chemical and biological warfare. Witnesses described how Basson's helped develop poisons, arranged assassinations, and supplied toxic substances to security forces. However, in 2002, Basson was acquitted of all charges due to insufficient evidence and legal technicalities, much to dismay of human rights activists. So his fucker won. Controversy and legacy. Despite his acquittal, Wouter Basson remains a deeply controversial figure. He continued to practice medicine after his trial, but his involvement in Project Coast has left a lasting stain on his career. Many South Africans, particularly those affected by apartheid's abuses, feel that justice was not served. I am one of them. The lack of accountability for crimes committed under Project Coast has left a legacy of anger and distrust. Ongoing legal battles and medical licenses. So in 2013, the Health Professional Council of South Africa, HPCSA, charged Basson with unethical conduct for his role in Project Coast. They argued that his actions violated Bantu. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening and tuning into our content. Please help grow the channel by liking and subscribing. See you on the next episode.